Hello and welcome to the Innovator Lab podcast. I'm Adrienne Farrell, and today our guest is Kim Ross. Kim is a holistic nutritionist and integrative dietitian, a certified meditation teacher, and has completed a fellowship in herbal medicine. Kim offers programs, lectures, corporate wellness seminars, and workshops nationwide on cutting-edge health topics. As an industry expert, she is a consultant to businesses and investors, and she also maintains a private practice in Manhattan. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. I know that you are passionate about adaptogens, preventative medicine or preventative health, and meditation. So I'd love to start there. Could you tell us a little bit about adaptogens and why they are important?
Sure. Adaptogens are simply elements found in nature, mostly plants, but they come in many forms, such as herbs and roots and even fungi. And they help us adapt to certain situations, mostly stress, but it could also be the immune system, it could be sleep. They're really wonderful, and they've been around for thousands of years. So they can be found in our modern society in teas, in tinctures, in roots, even some foods. Some people take them in powders or capsules or tablets. And common adaptogens that the audience may know might be medicinal mushrooms like reishi or shiitake or cordyceps, even lion's mane. And some of my favorites are actually ashwagandha, which is very safe and really wonderful for stress and hypothyroidism and sleep. And then there's rhodiola, which is really for brain health and for physical endurance. But some of these you have to be really careful with, because some, if you take too much or you don't know how to take them, can be a little bit dangerous. Like licorice, for example, which is wonderful for stress. If someone has high blood pressure, it can actually raise blood pressure. So certain people have to be careful. And it's important to talk to a nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor to determine the quantity and how to take the adaptogens and what might be appropriate for the person's specific health issues and or limitations.
Mhm. I appreciate you saying that. I know that a lot of these materials are available over the counter, even on Amazon. So I appreciate you saying that we should check with nutritionists and healthcare providers and get a little bit of guidance on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And could you talk about adaptogens specifically for women and women's health? Do you have any words of wisdom there?
Well, I can speak of women's health, but it's not necessary that adaptogens are specific for men or women, because they do overlap because they're foods and herbs found in nature. So it's not necessarily specific. I mean, there are specific herbs that would be geared more towards a man or woman. For example, red clover can help with estrogen if someone is a little bit estrogen deficient, but we're talking about adaptogens here. So when we talk about adaptogens, I think that they could be used for men or women. And like I said, for example, licorice is great if someone is a little bit estrogen deficient. So that could be one that would help. But specifically like the ashwagandha and rhodiola and all those medicinal mushrooms that I had mentioned earlier can be used for men or for women. And if we're speaking, specifically about women's hormones, that's another question. And that would be adaptogens along with other nutrients and foods.
I see. Okay. And in your practice, how often do you find yourself prescribing adaptogens, and in what form are you usually prescribing them if you do?
Yeah, so I do prescribe them pretty regularly. And as a nutritionist and a dietitian, we don't really prescribe medicine, but we suggest and recommend different herbs and medicines, because everything is, over the counter. Someone can buy it in a store. It's not prescription and nothing that I would recommend. And so it's pretty universal as far as people eating a healthy plant-based diet, or not even plant-based, but eating animal foods too, can consume some of these adaptogens, like I said, in the tinctures or teas, or even making like a stir-fried mushroom dish and adding shiitake. So that can be a great thing. But I find it sometimes necessary to add in pills and capsules and tinctures and powders, let's say into a smoothie or maybe into, some people use mushrooms into like a coffee or a hot chocolate or a tea to make a drink, or even with like a golden latte with mushrooms, something like with, oat milk and turmeric root and maybe some mushroom powder, something like that. So that's a great way to get it in. But something like an ashwagandha would be used more in a tincture or a pill, whereas holy basil, which is also known as tulsi, which is really wonderful for mood, is easily found in many, many teas. And they usually mix them with other flavors as well, like lavender or peppermint, but you can also just buy plain holy basil.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is really helpful. So it sounds like we can approach adaptogens in a variety of ways through our cooking and our everyday, healthy eating. We can add them to our smoothies, into our coffee or golden tea, like you mentioned, or tinctures or regular teas. So that's really great. It sounds like they're very accessible in a number of different ways.
Yes, definitely. Easy to consume and easy to feel good fairly quickly. I do think it's important to note that people may want to consider cycling on and off some of these because, for example, rhodiola, if you take it too long, it can almost have a negative effect and not be effective anymore. So always talk to your healthcare provider about like, maybe staying on something for days, weeks, or a certain amount of months, and then maybe taking a break and see how you're doing, and then deciding if you want to reintroduce that adaptogen or not. Now, if it's food, you don't have to worry about it, or something just like a basic herbal tea. It's not as crucial. But when it comes in more of a supplement form, we have to be a little more careful because it's often concentrated.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. And what are your thoughts on these drinks that we're seeing out there? I know that the whole sober curious movement is really has taken off in the last year or two, and we're seeing a lot of alternative drinks out there that are non-alcoholic, that have shrubs in them or are different, tincture based seltzers and things like that. What is your take on the adaptogenic alternative drinks that are out there?
I think there's definitely a place for them in lieu of alcohol. You'll see a lot of these in mocktails on a list if you're at a bar or a restaurant, or even in a higher end grocery store or bodega. You'll often see a section with these adaptogenic drinks that might have some of the things that I talked about, like the lion's mane, the mushrooms, or the ashwagandha or holy basil. And they're often mixed with either a water or sometimes a sugary juice or a sweetener, or sometimes some caffeine like a green tea or a black tea. So you really have to be careful because looking at the grams of sugar, looking at the ingredients are super important, and looking at the quantity because some of them have such a small amount it may not even be effective regarding the adaptogen. And some may have too much, or people are drinking multiple drinks and they may end up getting too much. So, if you can find one that doesn't have any harmful ingredients, that doesn't have any added sugars or anything like that, or too much caffeine added, I think it could be a nice addition to the diet. There's also the price factor. I know that a lot of them are quite pricey, and so that's another factor. If you're trying to consume something on a daily basis, you may want to just stick with a basic tea. But if you want something fun in lieu of a cocktail, an alcohol cocktail, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So in general, watch out for the sugar content, the caffeine, and the price, but overall they could be beneficial and also maybe not to consume too many so we're not overdoing it.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That's all really interesting. And just moving on to preventative health and preventative medicine, could you speak a little bit to how you view nutrition when it comes to preventative health for women?
Yes. And I think that is a great segue for epigenetics. And I would love to talk about this because epigenetics is something that we can turn on or off. And we all have genetic markers, and the genetic markers could be, for example, that you may have a predisposition based on your genetics to either a certain type of cancer or high cholesterol or an autoimmune disease, but it doesn't mean you're going to get this. What this means is that there's a marker, and this marker, this gene, could be turned on or off based on our lifestyle. So that's actually great news because the decisions we make each day, such as sleep habits, the foods we eat, if we exercise, how much sunlight we take in, our stress levels all play a role in turning these markers on and off so that you can actually, prevent turning this on if you live a healthy lifestyle. So we talk about preventative medicine, it really comes down to eating a very healthy diet. Doesn't mean you have to be 100% perfect all the time, but I'd say, 80 to 90% of the time eating lots of fruits and vegetables to get in those flavonoids, to reduce inflammation, getting in the phytochemicals and the antioxidants in rainbow colored plant foods every single day, even about 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, maybe some whole grains, healthy fats like avocado and olive oil and walnuts, and taking in, other nutrients that could be even like a berry or a tea or an herb that can provide antioxidants and vitamins and minerals and even enzymes to support cognitive function, reduce stress, mental clarity, to keep your immune system strong, to prevent disease. Because it's really about prevention when we talk about longevity. It's about doing the right things on a daily basis. And then if you do need to splurge once in a while, or you choose to, it's a birthday or whatnot, and someone wants a dessert or they want to have a little alcohol, maybe balancing that with something good. So maybe if you wanted to do chocolate cake, for example, on your birthday, maybe having a bowl of mixed berries with that to bring down some of the inflammatory markers and really increase your antioxidants and fiber.
Okay, so offsetting some of the sugar and some of the impact of the cake
Right.
by incorporating more fiber. I think that's a great tip to give people because we don't need to live an all or nothing lifestyle, and many of us don't. So balancing out seems like a really great way to go. So that's really interesting. Sounds like you're saying the best way to have a preventative lifestyle is through your diet, to just focus on having that rainbow of vegetables, the healthy fats, the whole grains. And of course, different people have different dietary restrictions, and of course we need to modify for that. But there's really no magic pill or get rich quick scheme here. We just need to eat well, and that is our best preventative medicine.
Yeah, I think, and eating well along with, mitigating stress,
Mm,
meditating if possible, getting into nature, exercising, getting adequate sleep. So I think of it like a toolbox and pulling different things from your toolbox on a daily basis that you feel you might need and getting very in touch with your body because, you can be really stressed out and be the appropriate weight and run, 10 miles a day and eat healthy. But if you're so stressed, you could actually, give yourself a heart attack or something like that. So I think it's if you have a predisposition towards that. So it's really choosing if you have, let's say, a pie, the different pieces of the pie, a little bit of nutrition, a little bit of exercise, a little bit of meditation, your social aspect, what you're taking in as far as the news, everything
mm,
around you has a vibrational energy. And what's so interesting is we want to have a high vibrational energy. So what we put in our body, whether it's food or news or nature, or environmental issues like car exhaust, those all play a role, what we're putting on our body like lotion. So really looking at it from a holistic viewpoint.
mhm. And when you talk about a vibrational energy, are you speaking to this from more of a spiritual perspective or a scientific perspective, or can you expand a little there?
Sure. When I say it has a high vibrational energy or maybe a low vibrational energy, it's a combination of science and spirit. Because as we know in science, we are all vibrating. We are all actually energy. We are all atoms and molecules. And even a table, which seems solid, we've found out is actually energy vibrating in a very dense situation. And other things have a lighter, more malleable kind of vibrational energy or lighter, and maybe those molecules move faster or slower. So, for example, if you eat an apple and you take a bite of that apple and then you let it sit out and you see that it turns brown, it's literally oxidating, it's rusting, like the little spots on your skin as we age, or a swing set if it's left in the rain for too long. And so this apple is alive. We are alive. And so therefore we can die, we can age, we can change. Whereas if it's a dead food or a dead product that we're consuming and it looks the same in the package maybe 6 months or a year or 2 years later, it doesn't have as high of a vibrational energy. And so it's going to affect the body in a less positive way. So we want to be eating whole natural foods that are from the earth, that have living, either were alive and gently cooked or are alive, to raise our vibrational energy. And yes, there is a spiritual component too. Um, being a holistic nutritionist and a certified meditation teacher and interested in spirituality, I have delved into that to somewhat. So I do believe that that plays a role. And I know everyone doesn't want to go down that road, which I respect, but I still feel like it has validity.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that you bring the physics into it, the scientific side, because that is really important. And the spiritual aspect of it, to each their own. Everybody has a different viewpoint. And I think that's a whole other conversation, which I would also love to have at some point as well. Great. So when we talk about foods being alive or not, this is really interesting. What are some examples of foods that are not alive, that are not do not have any atoms or molecules or vibrational energy to them?
Well, everything does have a vibrational energy, even what I would consider more of a dead food. So, for example, when we say a dead food, I don't mean literally, but let's take Fruit Loops or a packaged sweetened cereal or a Twinkie or a very processed high sugar food that's very preserved would look the same in the package many months or even years later. I mean, yes, it would get more stale, but it was never alive, so it could never really die, because most of it is chemicals that were made in a factory or so processed and so refined, often with preservatives or artificial colors or flavors. And then there's a version of even something like an energy bar or a protein bar, which would be a better choice, that might have rolled oats in it or dates or, added protein powder or whatnot. And that would be better, but still, it wouldn't have the same vibrational energy or be maybe as nutritious from a vibrational standpoint as something like a piece of fresh fruit or a fresh vegetable. And even beans, we can't eat beans that are dried. We have to cook beans with water to make them palatable and absorbable and digestible. And so once you cook the beans, really they'll only last in the refrigerator several days before they would go bad. So even that becomes more alive when it's reconstituted to be able to eat it through cooking.
Mm, because then we can metabolize it and draw from it and utilize the nutrients.
Right. So if we want to be clear and sharp and light and fresh and not feel bogged down with low energy and brain fog and feel sluggish, then we need to supply our body with foods from nature. A mix of cooked and raw fruits and vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats like avocado, nuts and seeds, maybe some coconut. And yes, there's a place for animal foods as well. But all that was alive or is alive. So I feel like we should stay as close to nature as possible.
Mm, I love that. I'm writing that down. Stay as close to nature as possible. Thank you. This is all really, really interesting. And just for time's sake, I could spend all the time in the world talking about this, but let's move on to your meditation practice and how do you utilize that with your clients? And what benefits do you see your clients getting out of meditation?
Meditation is so important in today's day with all the stress, in today's world with all the stress that we consume in so many different ways, whether it be the diet, the news, the alarm clock, school, work, family issues, financial issues, health issues. So if we can create a meditation practice, and so for some people it's just swimming or playing tennis, that could be a meditation, or doing artwork or walking through the forest. It doesn't have to be sitting in a lotus position. But if you or someone can incorporate some sort of meditation practice daily so it becomes a real habit, it would be really beneficial to develop this sense of equanimity, of equilibrium, of balance. So whatever comes your way, any kind of stressors, you can get back to that middle ground, that place of calm and balance. So some examples of a meditation practice could be focusing on the breath and simply being aware of the present moment and in the present moment. I like to say, as Ram Dass said, be here now. and maybe focusing on the breath, just watching the inhales and the exhales, and maybe even counting them or counting your breath for 4 counts or 8 counts. Some people get distracted easily that way, and they do better with a body scan, relaxing each and every body part slowly, or perhaps using a visualization, which can be very effective, like an anchor. For example, a snow globe, when we are crazy and have a million thoughts, and you see the little snow, that's like all the thoughts and the snow and the stress and the everything going on that's causing anxiety or busyness in someone's mind, and to kind of watch that snow fall to the bottom and settle down, and you see that it's actually clear, like the cloud in the sky. It's just a cloud and it passes. A thought may pass, and then we go back to the blue sky. So these are just a couple examples of a visualization to develop this sense of equanimity and calm, and get your mind away from thinking, going, doing. And when the thoughts pop in, simply labeling them thought, and then going back to the breath or somehow back to the present moment. And even though this can be difficult, the studies show that even 1 to 5 minutes a day, when practiced every day for even a month, can be effective in lowering stress, boosting the immune system, and so many other wonderful benefits. Prayer also plays a role. Having a connection with something can be very beneficial as well for helping us stay healthy and calm through all the vicissitudes and crazy turns of life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's amazing to hear that just 1 to 5 minutes a day, that we all have that, even though we might think we don't. We all do have 1 to 5 minutes a day. And I appreciate what you said too earlier about having the toolbox. And this is one of those cases where for some of us, healthy cooking might be really accessible, something we enjoy doing. We cook for our families every night. We might have a lot of tools in that toolbox. But when it comes to stress management, what are those tools that we can pull out when somebody cuts us off in traffic and we get into a fender bender? So this is a great example. You said being mindful of the breath, being present in the moment, noticing how your body feels. These are great tools to utilize in those situations, especially because oftentimes as adults, it's really easy to go to substances for stress management, food,
Yeah.
alcohol, cigarettes, drugs. So I appreciate that you're talking about stress management tools that are free, that are accessible, and that are healthy. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
really
even using an app is great. There's so many free apps out there for meditation and mindfulness, even with eating, focusing on that raise and what does it taste like, the consistency, the digestion, the chewiness, how it affects the different parts of your tongue. So you can use this version of being mindful in any area of your life. Even if you're stuck in traffic, you can look at that as an opportunity, or waiting in line, to focus on the breath, to do a mantra that you create or that you've been given. It could just be something like, I am peaceful. I am peaceful. It can be anything you want. But ideally, I think 20 minutes a day, every day, ideally first thing in the morning, creates a really great habit to start your day off right, to create a space of that equanimity to handle whatever might come to you that day. Because the days get busy, and if we leave the meditation for the afternoon, the evening, sometimes we're too tired, or we have too many things to do, or it doesn't always work out.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I was chuckling on the inside when you were speaking of the morning. I have a toddler, and mornings are, a whirlwind of many emotions. And this is the season of life I'm in. So my meditation practice has certainly changed, and I find it more accessible to have shorter sessions during the day when it's a little quieter. But I think that's really the key. As you mentioned before, going on a walk or playing tennis, different things work for different people, and finding what works for you and what brings you your calm and your centering. It doesn't have to look the same for everyone.
Yeah, and
So
just to say one more thing about this, speaking of a toddler or someone who has a small child at home, because I do teach meditation to children as well as adults, is that you can work with your child and do this as a little fun game together, like a little snake breath, like, ooh, let's breathe in and out, like, and And if you just do that 5 times, the both of you will gain a benefit from that. So it can become a fun little game that you do together every morning, and you sit quietly with your back straight and put your hands in prayer, something like that. Even for a few seconds is a great little habit.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna try that with her. I'm sure she'd love it. She does have a book called Calm Down Time, and
Uh-huh.
it's really lovely. And it talks about taking a deep breath and counting to three. And her whole energy really shifts when we read it.
Oh, I
And one
love
part
that.
of it as well, it has the little child. It says, you can take a deep breath, you can tell someone how you feel, you can give yourself a hug. I just think it's so cute to teach, or it's just so beautiful to teach, our little ones these skills early on.
Yeah.
So
Help them
obviously,
cope. Yeah.
what's that?
I said to help them cope with emotions that they may not be able to identify with words yet. And they can breathe.
Absolutely. And into their, their young adult life, their, from here on out. Another thought I had while you were talking about this toolbox is I thought it was really interesting this idea of waking up in the morning and kind of assessing, looking at your menu of your toolbox and saying like, what do I need today? If I didn't get enough sleep, how can I support my body today with that? Or I'm stressed, I'm going to pull from the stress tools that I have, and kind of us doing a little bit of an evaluation every day to then like consciously supplement yourself with what you need could be an interesting practice. I think many of us just wake up and go, or wake up and look at your phone or check your emails. And um, I like the idea of really standing back and saying, okay, what tools do I need to utilize today?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I would love to just turn the tables a little bit and talk about you. I'm just so curious, what guided you down the path towards being a holistic nutritionist and integrative dietitian? Where did that passion come from?
Well, I was always interested in health and science. Even when I was a kid, I loved the health classes and learning about the body and the anatomy and the physiology. But I was also really interested in the arts, and I ended up having a short career in the arts. And as much as I loved that, I was feeling a desire to help and heal people. And I was deciding if I should go back to medical school or actually business school. And I thought, well, being a nutritionist, I can run a business, but I can also help and heal people. And I started studying around the country with alternative and complementary medicine healers, along with getting a master's in science and registered dietitian and post-bac and all that to get the clinical experience. And I found that I would love to help people get to the root cause, almost like functional medicine, and figure out what can they do for themselves without maybe, you know, taking a prescription medication or cutting someone open, which I really respect and admire doctors, but I didn't have the stomach for that. And so I thought, well, I can help people through herbs and foods and healing the body or preventing disease that way, which resonated more with my style and my goals. And I found that to be very gratifying to see someone that might come in with migraines or gut issues or autoimmune disease or weight issues or fertility issues and many other issues, and be able to really help them by changing their diet and their lifestyle and maybe getting them on some herbs or a supplement program, and showing them and teaching them and educating them about ways that they can do things that can be supportive as opposed to destructive.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I haven't heard you say that before, and it's nice to learn a little bit more about you. I'm also curious, obviously you're very tuned into your nutrition and your well-being. What is a mantra, and it doesn't have to be a mantra in the traditional sense, but a saying, a quote, that's something that you sort of have in your back pocket that you find yourself saying to yourself often that helps support your well-being? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and there's so many. I do personally use some Sanskrit mantras, but in addition, I'll often say to myself throughout the day, especially before bed, gratitude. If it's a beautiful sunny day out and I'm so grateful to be living in New York City, I might say, I'm so grateful for this moment. So, trying to find 3 things that I'm grateful for each day, and even just saying the word I'm grateful or gratitude, I think is beneficial. Also, something like be here now, just be in the present moment. And when my mind gets racy, like it happens to a lot of us, that we start thinking about a million things with our to-do list or things about the past or the future, to just be here now at your desk or walking wherever you are, and maybe even saying, I'm calm or I'm peaceful or, you know, I have love. Just anything. It could really be anything. There's not a right or wrong, but
Mm.
something positive. Or I got this from another meditation teacher and I took it to add it to my toolbox, which is imagining all of your cells filled with a white light and filled with almost little happy faces. So you're glowing and you're vibrating at a high rate, and it really makes you feel better all around to know that all of your cells are filled with this healing white light and happy and grateful. And it kind of just puts you in a good mood. It's a cute little image.
That is cute. Happy little cells. I like that. That's lovely. Great. And I'm also curious, and this might be a hard question for you, but what do you think has been the most impactful book that you've ever read?
Well, this may not be appropriate for everyone, but from a spiritual perspective, I really loved a book literally called Be Here Now by Ram Dass. He goes into talking about psychedelics, which is not appropriate for everyone. And I'm not saying I'm involved in it. I'm just saying it's about kind of his version of the meaning in life, the meaning of life. But I also have shelves and shelves filled with nutrition books and Ayurvedic medicine and homeopathy and herbal medicine and flower essences and aromatherapy. So I really love to take nutrition and health and healing properties from nature and from so many different cultures. So it's hard to say that there's just been one book because there's been so
Mhm.
many, like Radical Healing by Rudolph Valentine and Healing with Whole Herbs, and even encyclopedias of natural medicine or the German Chinese natural cures. There's just so many. It's hard to choose just.
Yeah. That's why I said I knew it'd be a hard question for you. Um, Great. Well, thank you. Be Here Now, certainly, highly recommended as well. Great. And do you have any workshops, programs, webinars, anything coming up that you'd like to share with listeners?
Well, I am involved in my Instagram page, which is at Kim Ross Nutrition. So that gives the audience weekly, very applicable tips for all different health issues. And there's sometimes events on my website that are posted, kimrossnutrition.com. I'm speaking at many, many companies and spas and retreats. So I'm in the process of organizing and scheduling things for 2025. And I'll keep you posted on what's next. I'm also writing a book, so I'm not sure exactly when that's going to come out, but I'll keep you posted.
Oh, that's exciting. And I do have to say, your Instagram is just wonderful. I've learned so much there. So,
Thank you.
um, highly recommend checking that out. And are you currently accepting new clients?
Yes. So I have a private practice and it's mostly remote. So that, becomes more available for many people. And like I said, I also do private and public meditation sessions, whether they're corporate or with small groups or one-on-one, counseling and advising for companies and corporate lectures. But yes, I definitely see individuals one-on-one with many health issues. So feel
Okay,
free to get
that's
in touch.
absolutely. So we can find you at kimrossnutrition.com and also Kim Ross Nutrition on Instagram.
Yes.
Um, Thank you so much, Kim. This has been really enlightening. I've learned so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And I certainly would love to have you back down the road and check in and see what's going on in your world at a later time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you. So you don't have to leave. I'll just stop the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.